Okay. Well, we'll just I'll do a quick roll call. Councilmember Evans, that's me, is here. Councilmember Fullerton, and filling in for our vacancy right now, Deputy Mayor Terry Carter, as well as staff. Thanks, everyone. We'll move on to business item number 1, appointments of the committee chair. Do we have any nominations?
Look at this.
That's for you, right?
Yeah,
so
Cheater.
I would nominate Justin.
Okay, I would second that. Is there any other discussion? Any thoughts?
Okay.
All right, then we will appoint Councilmember Justin Evans as the committee chair of public safety. All right, that being done, now we can move on officially to AB 2209, Resolution 3008, a professional services agreement for the therapeutic court case manager. Judge Daniels, are you here?
Here.
Oh, nice.
Hello. Nice time.
Thank you.
We can talk about that later.
I don't have a piece of paper from any of them.
I like Terry's shirt.
Oh, I know why. Okay, so did everybody get a chance to review the individual's background?
Yeah, I did. So I'm trying to play catch up real quick here. I was fortunately able to talk to Maylee for a little while this morning. But what is so we got a grant of about $400,000. That's through the end of 2023?
June of 2023.
June of 2023, right. Okay. All right. Is there a breakdown? It says $217,000 is marked for personnel, salaries, and benefits. What is the contract amount for the case manager?
For the case manager, it's $2,500 a month. So for 24 months, that would be $60,000.
Okay.
She would be considered non-judicial staff. Our budget has $77,847 for that purpose.
77,000.
847.
847. Okay. And that's court staff or court?
Non-court staff.
Okay.
Non-judicial staff.
Okay.
So she would fall in that category.
Okay. Where does the other 110,000 come from or go to?
Well, it goes to judicial staff. We don't really know yet.
Okay.
That's projected.
Okay. Is that staff helping with the court, the therapeutic court?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that and or probation service. So as we find that we need them, then they would.
Okay. So that number outweighs the case manager's wages? Looks like we're paying 60,000.
It
Okay.
may.
We don't.
Okay. Is the workload that top heavy as well, or?
We won't know until the program gets going.
So they're starting this, they're just standing this program up, and they have only a couple of them within the country essentially. So this is kind of a brand new thing.
Okay.
And they were excited to get this very large grant, in fact, double, I think, what,
Right.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That
what
was awesome.
they were asking or initially thinking that they needed. And so this is kind of just to get everything up and going. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have a lot of going to be
Okay.
Right.
per se.
Right. And because we haven't done it before, when we applied for the grant, they required us to create a budget. So we're like, okay, this here and this here.
Okay.
Because we don't really have any idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to make sure we didn't get relying on, this 110,000 for that. That's not therapeutic court related. That when that money goes away, we're like, now what are we going to do?
Well, we have to stay within the parameters of the grant funding. We can't spend more than that.
Right.
We're not spending.
No, I know, I get that. But if for so right now we're paying 60,000 for the case manager, and then so 217,000 is earmarked for personnel, which is 157,000 earmarked for personnel otherwise. I just want to make sure that at the end of the grant, we didn't become dependent on that, whatever services were being rendered with that 157, whatever if we hire someone else to do this, that
Oh, you mean that we'd be exceeding what we have to spend?
not the grant amount, but when the grant's over, have we become attached to the services being provided,
Oh, no.
if they're all being provided for this and the program goes away, then all the positions go away. But if the program, these people are only doing 25% of the work on the program, that other 75% is being done on the courts where I know we need people. I just want to make sure we're not putting money somewhere that once it goes away, we're going to hurt ourselves in the end.
We do have the ability to move the money around if we have to,
Okay.
but our expectation is that we are not going to exceed the funding that we have. I mean, we can't.
No, I get that. Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about outside of.
I think your concern is if we hire somebody and now that person is a city employee,
Yeah.
the grant runs out, now we're paying that person out of the general fund. I think that's your concern.
Right. Yeah. Now, yeah, because if we hire them and they're doing 50% therapeutic stuff and 50% other court stuff.
Oh, no, they're only going to be doing therapeutic stuff.
Okay.
That the professional services agreement is very limited. It's limited to strictly providing services to therapeutic court.
Okay. And the other 177,000, that's not earmarked for labor? I know this is all new startup and stuff, so I haven't been able to play catch up for 3 months of how this went.
In theory, it is. And going forward, we can be more concrete about it. And we have to provide quarterly statements justifying everything. And certainly you can look at the quarterly statements to see how we're doing. But right now, it's really hard to say. It's just not concrete.
No, I get that. But so 400,000, 217 is going towards personnel, and I understand that's, fluid. But the balance between that's 177,000, which would be earmarked for non-personnel.
Correct. It could be and everything else for like if we need to have startup costs and everything else for like IT, computers, workstations, court forms.
Oh, thank you.
After the grant piece with it under the prosecutors. Now, since then, we found out that so we can monitor those that if they're having somebody dedicated that they're having the therapeutic court, that we can track those times.
Okay.
So we'll be tracking all the details because we have to present a quarterly report to AOC and show them all the costs, all the expenses, give them a total of, like how many people have been included in on the program and what we're using for resources. And
thank you, Judge. This helped clear it up a lot. The $8,200 a month for treatment services. That's what I was getting at.
Right.
Was
Yes.
what does that include?
Treatment services mean everything else. So like the case manager and everything else, we get and send them to go to treatment. Is that's in there and everything else to help offset those costs for the person.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's what I was hoping to see. Is it wasn't just all 95% of it's going towards labor and staff and stuff, and we're only. But yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that.
Do you want to copy this?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
And we can also too. They said that we can transfer. I think it's up to % from one category to another. But before we do, we have to get authorization from them to let them know what we're wanting to, and they get the approval for them. But then bills everything.
Okay, thank you. I think this is an incredible opportunity, and I didn't realize it was so rare in the nation that we're starting something here, and super excited to see how this works out. I know this is definitely needed and an alternate to some of the things that you can do with the people that are sustaining the issues. So those were my questions. Like I said, I know this has been going on for a few months, and I have a lot of questions to catch up on in a few minutes. So.
And we also have this summer.
Oh, okay.
Meetings and everything else.
Okay. Well, welcome. Terry or Gwendolyn, do you guys have any questions on the resolution?
No, I
the
don't.
Agenda bill?
I don't have any questions. I think it's a great program. I'm super excited about it, and anything we can do to stop, especially offenders that continue on, get them help so that we can stop crimes before they happen, essentially, is also very exciting.
I feel like I asked Judge Daniels for a definition a few weeks ago when I met her, and I felt like I had all of my that I had, and Todd Dole had actually informed me and brought me up to speed on that as well. Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
and I'd just like to remind all of you going forward that as we go ahead, if you have any questions at any time, you can always come see me, contact me, email me, or if you if you want to come to one of our Zoom meetings, because we have regular Zoom meetings with the stakeholders, so that you can feel more comfortable with what's going on, or be better acquainted with how it's all moving along, or stats, or where we are on the budget or anything. Don't hesitate.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Maylee, do you have anything you want to bring to the table here?
Can you hear me okay? No, I'm just here representing Sumner. I do have, so Judge Swain from Sumner wanted to be here, but she couldn't be here. She has a whole bunch of bullet points of really nice things to say about Summer, but I don't think I need to go through all of it because everyone is so supportive. Summer's already the case manager in the city of Black Diamond, so I think we're gearing up for a really good program.
All right, thank you.
Oh, also, if you guys wouldn't mind too, getting those ILAs back to the city of Sumner. I was told to remind you guys.
They know where we live. All right, Summer, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I feel like I can't let a bunch of people down now. No, I'm really excited as well. It's good to see everybody. I'm really excited for this program. I have been reaching out to Puyallup, who's been doing it for 3 years now, and I just reached out to Issaquah, and it sounds like they just started as well. I'm kind of just trying to get to know all the courts with their same program, and I don't know. I'm just really excited to see how this program works for our community mostly, and I'm going to give it my best.
Thanks. I was privy to hear those bullet points that Maylee was talking about. You come highly recommended and sound highly capable, and I think this is going to be
I was scared.
great opportunity for all involved to get some alternative methods for those in the system. So thank you so much.
I can tell you I have a history of being a chemical dependency counselor, which is definitely a good qualification for this. I have case manager experience because of that. I also am very highly involved in the community. I run a neighborhood crime watch for Bonney Lake area. So I have everyone's best interest at heart. I just really am passionate about this program, and I want to see some people get some stepping stones on life and have a chance. So
Absolutely. Deputy Mayor Carter and Councilmember Fullerton, do we all agree this should be moved forward on the consent agenda? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. We will move it forward to the consent agenda. John, is this on for tonight?
No, it'd be the 18th.
Okay.
Or 25th, excuse me.
All right. Thank you guys so much. All right. We'll move on to item 3. AB 22-03 Resolution 3003 of an independent contractor agreement with Phoebe Mulligan with the, I'm not going to say all those letters, but Chief Jeter.
Thank you. Yes, this is a contract to provide support services for our officers. Obviously, we invest a lot of money in our well-being is utmost important to us. Up to this point, we haven't had anybody that, I think everybody knows it takes a person that knows the background of first responders to be able to provide support to them, especially when it comes to emotional and mental health issues. Ms. Mulligan, that LICSW's licensed something therapist. I mean, it means she's smart, I'll tell you that. She has worked with first responders for quite a while. She's local. She lives just outside of Bonney Lake. Her office is in Fircrest. How we came across her, Sergeant Sasaki was on the scene of an officer-involved shooting in Puyallup, and she was there to support the officers, and everything they say is confidential, that they talk to her. They can see her privately if they want. This contract, though, she would provide training. We have a peer support team. So if somebody if there's an officer involved shooting or some other traumatic event, our peer support team would offer support and guidance for those officers that were involved. Part of this, she would train our officers on a regular basis that are part of the peer support team. Came in this last year as kind of a trial run and did an overview and briefing for our officers on how to take care of themselves, some opportunities that are available and some resources that are available to them. When I started this job, and I'm sure when Carter started this job, you're taught just to deal with it, and we all know that creates problems down the line. So offering these services to our officers, and this we wouldn't pay unless we use it. This isn't just like we're signing her and putting her on retainer. This just gives us the ability to utilize her in certain scenarios, and she's been very amenable to whatever we need or whatever fits us. She just wants to help. And so having her as part of the team, I know Fife has a contract with her, Puyallup has a contract with her, and I believe Lakewood does. So she's pretty Pierce County centric. So she knows a lot of what happens with law enforcement in Pierce County and is a great resource for our officers. So that's why I bring this forward as an investment in our officers and their long-term mental health and well-being.
Speaking of mental health, do you have any requirements that the officers meet with her outside of a critical incident stress debriefing or anything like that?
Only if they're involved in a officer-involved shooting, or if it's a really critical incident, they go mandatorily to see a psychologist for a debrief.
Okay.
None of that's shared with the department. It's just for their well-being. And if the psychologist or the officer says that they don't feel that they're okay to come back to work, and then we'll work under those parameters.
Okay.
Seek further help. Typically, it's just a debriefing, and it's for officers that are either a witness officer to a shooting, or it's mandatory if you're involved in an officer-involved shooting. In some instances, I mean, we haven't had any, but if they're very traumatic, we'll make it mandatory. But,
okay.
We also do critical incident stress debriefings, and it's not her favorite thing to do, but she could lead that. It's more typical that it's led by your peer support team or by your chaplain, but she could kind of train those folks up to deal with that. So,
do we have a chaplain similar to?
Yes,
okay.
We do. Yes. In fact, I think she's one of yours as well. No, Spirit, yeah, and her husband's he's with East Pierce.
Oh, okay.
She's been with East Pierce for quite a while. She's only been with us for about 2 years.
Oh, okay. Jewett?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's my neighbor. Awesome. You guys have any questions on that?
I don't have any questions. Yeah, I'll just say that I've spoken with a couple of officers. They're very pro doing this thing. I think it's another great resource. Like Chief Jeter said, back in the day, we didn't do this at all. And I think it's a good thing for our officers to invest in them a little bit. So I can't say enough good things.
So you don't like that.
Right. I'm going to try and get her for Pacific too.
All right. You guys all in agreement? Consent
Yes.
agenda for the next council meeting? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Approval of meeting minutes. I don't know if they were right or not. I wasn't here. So.
I think I looked at those way back in December and they were good.
All right. We have a motion to approve.
Yeah, second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. All right. Good. We will move on to reports and presentations. Number 1, East Pierce Fire and Rescue Monthly Report. Chief Parkinson.
All right, beginning on page 19, we have our monthly stats. Nothing dramatic compared to previous months. We still are continuing on a trend of about a 10% emergency incident increase. Technically, it's 10%. It's really more like 5% since it's a dip in 2020 due to COVID. So that puts us back on a trend of 5%. As normal, our units out of Bonney Lake, our busiest within our system, 6 units. And if you look on page 23, you'll see that the increases are by station. Bonney Lake Station. Has seen our second largest spike in overall call volume. Busy area. Outside of that, obviously, we had the weather that should have impacted incidents more than it actually did. We actually got away with it pretty luckily. Significant incident. So that was on the ground. Assuming that maybe the holidays kept people off the roads out of some of their. That's just fine. Our favorite subject, COVID. As everybody's aware, unless you're living under a rock, that the Omicron variant is kind of wreaking havoc throughout the region. As of this week, we've shut down our office outside of command staff, and so we're shut down for the next 2 weeks. Public and all of our staff are spread. At the stations, we're starting to see a pretty big spike. We're probably nearing, I think, at the end of the 30 people quarantine potentially, so that'll shift how we're operating a little bit. The CDC gives us some different guidance of timelines that we're allowed to use to bring people back to work. So they have a conventional mode, contingency mode, and crisis mode. So conventional mode is what we've been operating in forever, and then the confusing one is now the contingency mode, and that's all the hoopla that you've seen on the news about the 5-day return. So we're not currently operating in that mode just because it's a little bit haphazard for us. However, given the number of people that we may have out of the next couple of weeks, crisis mode is when you basically take all timelines out of it. Positive. We've seen some hospitals down in California. What we're seeing regionally in hospitals is that they are jam-packed and overflowing. Not a whole lot of relief there. As far as what we're seeing in the field, very much the same, that majority of what we're dealing with COVID or assumed-based incident. Right side, again, just like you see on the news, as far as what we're seeing as severity, it is less than what we saw in some of the earlier stages. We're hoping that just as this thing picked up overnight, that it kind of drops off over the next couple of weeks. All the modeling suggests, and hopefully that holds up. By next month, when I report out, I can say we're back to normal operations, working as fire stations. Outside of that, when we last spoke in November, our budget had just passed. I had mentioned that we were adding a position this year now of a social worker into the field. That position has posted for recruit. The actual title is a behavioral health specialist. So just as a refresher, what that means is right now we have one person, Jen Killian, who's our community medic. Her focus is on low acuity chronic users. This person will partner with her, so this is something more along the line. Partner with her. This person will take on most of the case management, where Jen does most of the initial. That's a good enhancement to our area. Benefits, obviously benefits. Looking forward to having that person on board. We expect them to start first. Then just last item, as far as bond items go, we received and placed into service our last 2 fire engines. So Bonney Lake actually got a second brand new engine out of the deal because one of the initial engines was placed in service here. And so our remaining last 2, we actually pulled that one out of service and put another brand new one. Much needed maintenance work and fires.
The one that got wrecked, has that one been replaced yet?
We've had a number of rigs that get wrecked.
Oh, okay. So the one that just came into use, and then
we did have one that tried to move the rock, and the rock won. That is the one that got pulled out.
Oh, okay.
Some body work done.
Okay. The one I was thinking on, I thought was off of Angeline and Sumner Buckley, as it was towards calls for a call, I thought.
Yeah.
And that one hit a vehicle came out and hit that one.
We did have a vehicle. We had a vehicle over the summer, and we had one That was on Sumner Buckley, just short of Angeline.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was over a year ago that we
Okay.
did almost go head on with somebody. That vehicle is sensor.
Oh, okay. The wait lists on at Ford and all these places,
Yeah.
and figure anyone's getting things done fast.
That is all I have. If there's any questions, I can answer.
On the social worker one, I'm guessing that's mostly the frequent calls for drug and mental health issues, not necessarily calls at elderly.
It can be all sorts of things. One of the things that we're trying to shift, we have a really substantial subset of our calls are falls.
Oh, okay.
And a large subset of that are elderly falls, things that are oftentimes preventable.
Oh, okay.
Facilities. So
Okay.
this will allow us an extra body to start using.
Yeah, that's great. Proactive. I like that. Any questions for Chief? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Move on to presentation number 2, Public Safety Monthly Report with Chief Jeter.
You have it in front of you. I think you've probably read it. There's quite a few calls that rose to the level of making it to this report. It was a busy month. I can't remember the exact date. I know it was the last week of the year. On one day, we had 3 robberies. Very unusual for Bonney Lake. Very unusual. So thank God nobody was hurt. The problem with a lot of them is trying to identify suspects. I think what everybody is seeing is a lot of serial thieves and robbers that are hitting. Right now we're working with Gig Harbor and Spanaway, so Sheriff's Department, somebody that's going to the Fred Meyer's and robbing Fred Meyer stores. Luckily, the clerk at Fred Meyer, when they went to rob the Fred Meyer here, that they passed a note to the customer service lady, and instead of talking to him, she picks up the phone and was calling loss prevention. And the suspect, "What are you doing?" And she didn't answer, and she just kept talking. The guy picked up the note and left. So I wouldn't advise that because he was armed, but it worked in this case. She was lucky. Like I said, we're fortunate nobody was hurt, but as we tend to see in these situations, these people get more desperate and more desperate, and if there's any sort of resistance, they're not afraid to use force, which certainly. If you go to the back page, it is what we call our NIBRS and crime report. That's what's the numbers that we report to the FBI, and that's based on our calls for service. And I think if you kind of look pre-July and post-July, you can draw your own conclusions on the legislation that was passed. If you look post-July, a lot of things are dramatically increased. Our assaults went up, our robberies went up, our motor vehicle thefts are off the charts now. We were having maybe 1 to 0 a month. One month we had 17, 12, 11. It's just crazy, and people are not stopping. They know that they don't have to stop. We've had 2 last night that we tried to stop for. One of them was for a traffic violation. The other one was for possibly a crime, but it doesn't meet the criteria for us to pursue. The 2 people just chose not to pull over and kept going. There was nothing. We had no recourse. So I think it's a little bit more than a coincidence that our numbers spiked after the legislation. We're certainly working with that, and our officers are doing the best they can. And on the opposite end, we're working to try to help with some of the legislation and clarification of this. And so far, we've had pretty good response. I know that the representative who passed a lot of this legislation was the spearhead, Representative Johnson out of Federal Way, actually requested to meet with me, and so I spoke with him about the impacts of Bonney Lake. So you can imagine if we're experiencing this, what the larger cities are experiencing. He did, to his credit, came out and did a ride-along with us just to see what was going on. I applaud his efforts for doing that and trying to make positive change. So I go into this legislative session cautiously optimistic, although I see some of the proposed legislation makes it more confusing for our officers on the street, which is certainly what we don't want. But I think they're willing at least to listen and try to address some of this stuff because it has just gone crazy in the past 6 months. And I know John gets our daily shift reports, and this last weekend, holy smokes, our officers were running. I mean, almost every shift now, especially on the weekends, our officers are holding over. There was a homicide in Carbonado that we assisted with. They got the suspect. It turned into an officer-involved shooting. That our officers were not involved in the shooting, but they were involved. They got there right after the shooting and were part of that scene. So it just, the types of calls, the volumes of calls keep ratcheting up. So definitely busy. We are trending up as well. We're about 1,000 calls, and the neighbors were a month behind, so this only goes through November. So we're trending about 1,000 up from where we were last year at this time, and about 2,000 more reports. So 200 more reports. So it's been very busy for our office. So any questions on my report? I have a couple FYI items. Are there any questions on that?
I've got one, the armed robbery at Metro T-Mobile.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, there was a robbery that, because there were 9 people in the store, it spiked. Was that the same store?
No, that was Verizon.
It was Verizon. Okay.
Yeah, they actually, because there was 9 people involved, pinged us for 9 robberies.
Right, yeah.
These are all, the ones that you see here are all separate robberies, to my
Okay.
knowledge. That's trending up. And we don't have November's or December's numbers, as I said, but as of November, we had 6, and I know there's going to be at least 3 more added to that in December, if not 4.
And the homicide in Carbonado, I believe it was sheriff's, but
It was actually Buckley.
oh, was it Buckley?
Yeah.
Okay. They were pursuing the guy, and then he started firing at the officers.
They attempted to pull him over. He was not stopping, but they did deploy spike strips. So
Okay.
he kind of went off into a ditch. That
Okay.
sounds like they exchanged gunfire. I haven't seen a briefing on it yet,
Okay.
because I know that that's another thing that's problematic. They just changed the whack that involved agencies. So if we have another officer involved shooting, I'm not allowed to get a briefing on what happened. So I have no clue whether I can bring the officer back to work or not, which is just crazy to me. And we're talking about being transparent.
Yeah.
So, and then this one, Pierce County, we have community reps on the Pierce County Force Investigation Team. Pierce County's representatives were not available, so our 2 Bonney Lake representatives stepped up. So kudos to them. They had their briefing last night from the investigative team, and we hosted it here at Bonney Lake.
No officers injured at all?
No.
Okay. Have any questions for Chief? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Chief.
Yes, I have a couple FYI.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah.
Appropriate. You may or may not have heard CSO Nate Albert this is his last week, which is going to be a tremendous loss to us. We did have a current list, so we have interviewed and moved one of the people to the background. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to replace him. I'm hoping by March 1. We had one of our newly hired CSOs, who was a former officer of ours, was injured on duty, and it looks like it's going to be a lengthy delay in getting him back. So we also brought back our former bailiff as a provisional CSO. His main job is going to be to help Judge Daniels in the court with court security, but we're hoping that we don't skip too much, but we do lose a lot with Nate. He has just been wonderful with community programs, and his initiative is going to be tough to replace. So, but we are moving forward with that. We also will have interviews next Thursday for both lateral and what we call exceptional police officers. That doesn't mean they're exceptionally good. It means that they've been through the academy, but they don't meet the requirement for lateral, which is 24 months with another agency. And we are moving forward. We have one officer who has told us he is retiring in March for sure, although I don't have it in writing yet. But he's our task force detective. We recently had oral boards to replace him, and we're going to replace him, and he's going to have about 6 weeks to work with his replacement before he retires. And then another officer has verbally indicated that he wants to retire at the end of February. Again, I don't have anything in hand on that, but we're looking to lose at least a couple officers for the year. So we're busy trying to replace them and find viable candidates. Update on the body cameras. We ordered our body cameras and they're about 60 days to 90 days out. So we're looking at probably March before they get here and they're trained and they're deployed. But we'll have a discussion this evening about those sessions. Update on when we're looking to get those in. Last item I have, after the council meeting last week, Pierce County Councilmember Dave Morrell said that the county wants to partner with Bonney Lake to deploy school beacons on 199th Avenue between Mountain View and Bonney Lake High School. It's very difficult for us to enforce because part of it's in the county, part of it's in the city. County has different signage for their school zones than we do. So if we partner with them on this and each of us buys a school zone beacon, the signage will be consistent and that will be enforced when flashing. So that should help. But the other problem is it's very difficult to enforce because there's no driveways or areas for police to work. So we'll be looking at that, but that would be a great joint project between Pierce County, Bonney Lake, and hopefully make a difference because every time we do a speed survey there, 25-mile-an-hour zone, but the average speed is somewhere around 38. The 85th percentile. So that means 85% of the people are doing 38 or better. So 13 over in a school zone, which is scary in and of itself, especially this time of year when it's dark in the morning during school and a lot of times dark in the afternoon for school activities. So that's a promising project.
That sounds awesome. I know we've had some issues with people complaining about that particular area for probably the last 6 months or so, right? So for them to step up that quickly.
Yeah, we had applied for a grant last year to try to get all of our schools on flashing beacons, and we were successful. I know that we have some money budgeted, Public Works does, to replace some of our aging signs with the newer ones that we can program. So that way we can enforce when flashing, which I know helps Judge Daniels and helps our prosecution as well when it's consistent. And we're looking at upgrading that. Thank you.
Open committee discussion. Deputy Mayor Carter?
Well, since we have some people in the audience here, I'll just bring up their concerns
Okay.
of parking issues over on Panorama, right? There is something that we should probably take a look at, maybe with Public Works over there to help them out.
Got it. I'll reach out to them. I'll give them my card and reach out and tie them in with the right people and we'll see what we can do.
I think Ryan Johnstone and been apprised of that.
Oh, okay.
So that'd be a good starting point, I think.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Fullerton, do you have anything to openly discuss?
I'm excited about partnering with Pierce County and getting some footage.
like to
That was
spend
one of my
Pierce
first
County's money.
experiences was getting a letter from one of the constituents complaining about somebody doing cookies, driving around, almost hitting kids that were walking across the street for school. They don't have crossing guards there, so I was like, whoa, what do we do with this? So I'm excited about that. That's amazing.
I don't have anything to add, so no one else has anything? Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you.